You have a really interesting title that we kind of discussed a while ago, and you've had the title for about a year, which is the Thomas, our Chief Connection Officer. Could you explain a little bit about that, what it means, why we worked on that title, and what that means for a customer?
Absolutely. So originally my involvement with Thomas was around the science backbone of the connection intelligence offer.
Yeah.
And that's morphed into what I think is a fantastic title, Chief Connection Officer. What does that mean? What I'm concerned with is the extent to which individuals are connected with their work, with each other, with the purpose or the tribe of the organisation, because by understanding that, we can look at performance. It turns out that when people are disconnected, they underperform. Their morale is lower, they're less productive, they lose innovation, and they quietly check out. So my job is all about understanding that and doing something about it to increase connection, because actually connection leads to higher performance and health.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, we talked about, we often talk about the difference between connection and engagement. People measure engagement, but it doesn't seem to be having a material impact at a rolled up level on overall engagement levels. You talk about symptoms and outcomes and things. Perhaps you could explain the difference for somebody listening between what connection is and what engagement is.
So look, the engagement machine has been going for many, many years. And time again, organisations get engagement scores, which give them a sense of what's going on in an organisation, but they're not able to do anything with it. And that gets quite depressing. And the reason for that is that engagement really is measuring an outcome. What comes before that, the cause, if you like, is human connection. It's very difficult to be engaged unless humans feel connected with each other and with the purpose and the tribe that they're part of.
Right.
So really, connection being the cause, important to go to the root, because I think organisations, businesses in particular, might have forgotten that we are human beings, not human doings. We do have needs. We have a need to belong, a need to feel part of something, and a need to contribute. And if those needs are not met, we tend to do other things with our energy.
Such as?
Such as we become defensive. We start to act out so that we can feel belonging to something else, or feel more competent by associating with a sub-tribe, for example. And so our energy gets dissipated, and our contribution is undermined if we, at a human level, don't feel connected.
Nice. Yeah, well, it's nice. It's very uncomfortable when we're not feeling connected. I think everybody can remember an example in a job or a role that they've held where it just didn't work. And it might be that they didn't get on so well with their manager, or they didn't like what the company does, or they didn't get on with their colleagues, or the type of work they were doing. There's always something, and we've manifested that in our measure, haven't we? The connection measure, which looks at all of those facets, because they're all interconnected. You can feel great about your colleagues but hate the work. It's still going to demotivate you. You've got to kind of push forward on all of these things. What results have you seen with clients? You've been working with our clients now in a sort of a Uber consulting capacity with some of the boards in the companies we work with, but also, working one-on-one in smaller settings. Yeah,
so I call it the connection performance effect. And I think leaders, when they realise that they can dial up the human relationships and connections, immediately there's a sort of a moment of, so I've been focusing on the tasks, the systems and the problems, but actually if I look at the human connection, often it's an early warning system. So problems with KPIs, usually there's a lag, that there's a human connection issue or relationship issue prior. We know, for example, that over 50% of people leave businesses because they feel disconnected from their manager, from their boss. And so dealing with those things up front, rather than later on, means that you can get people to problem solve and be solution focused earlier and deliver more, but with discretionary goodwill and effort.
Nice.
And this is the art of leadership and management, which I think we need to inculcate businesses with again, the art of stewardship and human-centered leadership.
Yeah.
And I think what Thomas have done is really interesting because we've put a 6-factor model around it, which is the first in the world, by the way, from an empirical and evidence perspective. We've linked it with performance outcomes, and we've given organisations a means to understand who their people are at an individualised level,
Yeah.
how they feel,
Yeah.
and what state they're in, and then what you can do about that early on before problems really intervene to get the best out of them.
Nice.
And to do it collectively. And that's a one-off so far. I've not seen anything like it before.
Yeah, we've seen people that look at parts of that spread or looking at a lagging indicator like engagement, but they'll also have like a coach, like an AI coach, which of course we have in our Tom AI that works in real time. But it's not, it knows a bit about who they are from a psychometric perspective or even from other data that's been volunteered or passively acquired. But they don't necessarily know exactly how that person feels. And unless you've got that triangle, you can't take effective action, can you? It is a complete cycle.
You need the data, but you also need the human touch. So only last week I was running an event for a C-suite in a financial services PE-backed organisation. And it was quite an intense programme. It was a day and a half. And the purpose of it was to form that team and connect the relationships up so that the outcome of that team was greater. It was greater than the individual parts. And, you know, it's an extraordinary journey when you get that kind of thing right, because if you can speed it up and create trust and cohesion in a group quickly of high talent, the world is your oyster. You know, you can really start to perform fast. And that's really the secret of human connection, I think, is if we can all get on the same page and trust one another, feel psychologically safe, fail fast, make mistakes, understand each other's strengths and play to them and work together, we can achieve great things. But the opposite is also true.
Yeah.
And I see, I'm sure you do too, in many organisations, an over-obsession on task and KPI to the extent that people become tired and often quietly quit. They become overwhelmed because there's so much digitisation and input. There isn't time really to do the human relationships, the soft stuff that we used to do around the water cooler.
So-called soft.
Doesn't really happen. And actually we know, don't we, in business, that soft stuff that we used to call around the water coolers, having the informal chats, building the trust, that stuff actually is hard outcome stuff because it builds the connection which leads to performance. And so I think future organisations that succeed will build in connection intelligence to their infrastructure because connection isn't a nice to have, it's actually a performance variable.
We work with a number of partners. Recent initiative for us, but we've always worked with partners, but we work with a number of impressive consulting partners, people who are seeing the opportunity of helping organisations fix this disconnection challenge. Talk to me about how we partner. I mean, don't necessarily be specific about any particular companies, but the kind of things we can do with partners and the way partners can support their customers using some of the Thomas technology.
I think what Thomas offer partners is a mechanism, a means to make connection real, to add to their portfolio, but also to track the connection performance effect. So we have a science, we have a methodology and a world-class platform which enables understanding of self, teams and connection to organisation. And the use of this means that over time you can build in more sales to create more performance with your clients. I've not seen anything like it before. I think it's a standout from regular classical psychometric solutions because it's integrated and it also brings in data signals from many, many different sources.
And you've had a long history in psychometrics of sorts, right? And long history
I have been in the industry a wee while.
Yeah, but that includes both looking at the value of the ones that exist out there in certain areas and also building your own, and now working inside an organisation that has multiple of its own. Do you want to just give us a bit of a background on your journey into psychometrics?
Yeah, sure.
And I guess what qualifies people to say, okay, I want to hear what Mr. Cooper has to say.
Yeah, so my background in psychometrics spans science, ethics and good practice, being a developer of assessments and running a business to scale distribution in the talent world. I began setting up the UK's first psychometric centre of excellence in the early 1990s, sponsored by the Employment Department, where we created a shop window of all of the different talent assessments on the market from all of the publishers, so that organisations could come and see what was on offer and pick and mix and choose assessments that added value to their business in terms of recruitment, selection and development and leadership.
Nice. Yeah.
And was involved in the British Psychological Society competency framework for training and skills in the use of assessment beyond psychologists into the HR world. So I know pretty much all the different metrics that are out there and how they operate, what really cuts the mustard and what doesn't. I think
you went on to develop your own as well in the emotional intelligence space.
Yeah. So my own business, over a period of about 20 years, we spotted an opportunity to look at the emotional side of work, and in particular emotional intelligence, which was underserviced in the 1990s in favour of skills and abilities. And actually, it turns out that EI, which is part of connection intelligence in the Thomas offer, explains quite a lot of the variance in management and leadership performance. And so EI is measurable. So we developed a metric to look at that and a 360. EI is also developable and changeable, as is connection intelligence.
Interesting. Yeah.
And it predicts performance. And I think that's the holy grail, really, is measuring something which we know predicts performance, but you can do something about it to help people change.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, we loved it when we added our emotional intelligence, our new emotional intelligence measure into that. We could see a correlation, couldn't we, with certain high levels of emotional intelligence and management capability and their sense of connection and how they make those adjustments.
Yes.
Because I think it's partly to do with, well, you know much more about it, but the self-regulation and self-awareness and awareness of others and that kind of confidence that comes in making connection and then feeling less isolated and then less able to make a contribution, and it's easier to leave if you feel in some way disenfranchised, as we know.
Yes.
So connection for us, as we know, is no longer abstract. You know, it's a real thing, it's measurable, and as you rightly point out, it's the first time it's become measurable, and we've been able to attribute corporate results to that connection over the last couple of years of studies, and now the recent study we did on the FTSE 250 that showed highest quartile performing companies had a highest sense of connection, and the lowest connected organisations had a much lower performance. In fact, they were shrinking over 5 years in terms of growth. So there is negative growth in those situations. So we know connection isn't abstract anymore. You can measure it. You can even benchmark it. If you could go back in and put it inside an organisation 10 years ago and people were measuring it, then doing something about it, what difference do you think that would have made over the last decade? I think particularly, forgive me, but if I can pin that down into particularly the last 5 years, which have been so tumultuous. Everyone talks about the effect of COVID. They still do, actually. But the ramifications of that distributed workforce, then the AI onslaught, then the world wars, whichever we want to look at it, there's just a huge amount of change coming in. So what difference would it have made?
I think the context is really interesting. Context for humans at work has changed very significantly in the last 5 years. People are more distributed, they're digitally hyper-connected, it's hard to switch off. The impact of AI has meant that there are very long documents going back and forth, and I think additionally people have become accustomed to and habitual around remote working, and there are vices and virtues to that. What's really interesting is that human needs have not changed,
no.
but the context has.
not since the birth of man.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I think that's really, really interesting. So I think in some ways, the digital world that we're in, the way work seems to operate now, has outpaced our own psychological development. We still have the same basic human needs. And I think if you look back, if we'd have had connection intelligence 5 or maybe 10 years ago and built that into the strategy of an organisation, I think we'd have spent more time being very conscious about the human qualities and what that provides to people in terms of meaning, discretionary effort and productivity. Because I think disconnection, which actually is prevalent in most organisations right now, disconnection can appear in a number of different ways. It can be loud, but most often it's quiet. It's very quiet. It's not noisy at all. It's people that probably are overwhelmed through workload, that feel disconnected from the human needs that they have, but don't know what to do about it because they are remote. And over a period of time, they leave.
Yeah.
They become unproductive.
Yeah.
So if we'd have had connection intelligence 5 or 10 years ago, I think we'd have had the information that we needed early on as a warning signal system to do something about it before we had a rump of people, quietly quitting, sort of under the radar when it's too late.
There has been I totally agree with that. There has been an architectural breakthrough, as we know, with the advent of injectable AI, where we can place our advisory restricted content into the moments that matter inside an employee or manager's daily life. And that has been a real breakthrough technologically that would have been very hard to do well 2 or 3 years ago. But I have this feeling that if we and when we as Thomas and other vendors like us get this right, and the partners that support us in other ways, there is an opportunity for people to genuinely feel better at their work, genuinely have opportunities for growth because the companies are flourishing, because the reason why people aren't getting the mobility, the reason why the new jobs aren't coming in, the reason why people aren't getting pay rises, is all connected to the same thing. We have underperforming companies. We have an underperforming country. We have underperforming countries everywhere, and there's lots of existential reasons to blame, but actually a strong vision with a great culture that has a product that's fit for purpose, that meets the needs of customers or exceeds the needs of customers because employees are delivering wonderful value. That impact on society of getting that right, of people going home happier, coming into the office happier, their state of mind, their ability to give after work to other causes and other issues and other communities, and to their family and to themselves because they've brought their best self to work. If we as an organisation can drive that, I think your vision is for millions of people to experience that through the Thomas experience and through anyone else. We're not proprietary on that. We just would love for people to feel like that. What do you see if we roll forward with Thomas 3-4 years down the line, not from a business KPI from Thomas's perspective, but for our customers, what does great look like? What can they hope to experience in years to come?
Yeah, I think what Thomas has done really well is nail the what and the how of connection intelligence to equip managers and leaders to build connected cultures. But for me, it's also about the why. Why is this important? And I think there's an opportunity to reframe AI as a way to enable better human connection so that people can work more productively, use AI to do the things that are less sort of intellectually taxing and repetitive, and focus on the important things with people: creativity, innovation, progress. And I think success for me would literally be a movement. So would be many, many millions of people, dare I say 100 million people a year's lives touched actively by connection intelligence, and an ecosystem of people all around the world that champion the importance of human connection at work. Because we need to build it in. I'm working quite closely with a number of partners and thought leaders in the AI space. And one of the really interesting themes at the moment is that folk are in the wild, as it were, using AI to have a relationship. So they're anthropomorphizing AI and treating it as a person, really, and as a friend, a mentor, a coach, a therapist, and having pretty good relationships with it. I think that's interesting in itself and demonstrates the human need is still there and it's possibly not being met in people's real lives. But the exam question for us is how do we use AI to enable long-term productive human relationships? Because in the end, it's us and what we choose to do with our time and our connections. And humans need to feel productive.
Yeah.
The science is clear. Part of our esteem comes from being productive at work.
Yeah.
And so we must attend to that. So success for me, more connection, not for the sake of it, but because it makes us more productive and happy.
Beautiful. Thanks very much.
At scale.
Yeah, great. Thanks, John.